The NFL's back, and there's no better way to stay up to date on the latest from around the league than listening to the Around the NFL podcast. Join me, Dan Hanzus, and my buds, Mark Sessler and Greg Rosenthal, for the latest football news with a dash of mirth.
We are three guys embarking on our 11th season together. 11 seasons, can't be wrong. Come along for the ride.
Fresh content almost every day, all season long.
Listen to Around the NFL on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander.
Tired of restless nights? At Leesa, we know good sleep is essential for mental, physical, and emotional health. From memory foam mattresses to hybrids that keep you cool all night long, Leesa's mattresses offer exceptional comfort and support with free delivery and 100 nights to try out your mattress in the comfort of your home. For a limited time, save up to $700 off select mattresses plus 2 free pillows. Go to leesa.com/iHeart for an additional $50 off mattresses and select goods. Exclusions apply. See leesa.com for more details.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmelk, joined by Paul Dottino. Good to be back in the state of New Jersey as we get going here. About 3 weeks now or so until we head off to the NFL Combine in Indianapolis for the next tentpole event of the NFL offseason. Then, of course, we have Pro Days, we have draft, and then we're rocking and rolling with OTAs. So it's a never-ending stream of news and things going on, but it's good to be back. 8 days, more like 8.5, to be honest with you, in Frisco, Texas for the Shrine Bowl, and then Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. And, Paul, it's good to be back in the building, but it was a very informative week out there.
Well, welcome. And I will tell you, you missed a couple of really bad rainy days here, but otherwise, weather wasn't bad, and I hear weather was really good by you.
Yeah, believe it or not, in Texas, it was fairly chilly. It was usually in the high 40s, low 50s for the days we were there, but everything's indoors there with the practice facilities, so
right.
We weren't really outside a ton, so that was fine. But it was sunny. It wasn't really a lot of rain. It was good. And then in Mobile, we had basically 60 to 65 most days, and sun was out and blaring. It was the Mobile can be very, very up and down and dicey when it comes to weather. We've learned that the hard way going down there for the last 5 or 6 years. This was easily the most consistent and best weather that we have ever had at the Senior Bowl in my time going.
And it's important to tell people why that is a key, because you've been down there before where they had to move the practices inside, and then you couldn't see everything, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Since, they have an indoor practice facility, basically the same size as the Giants. Imagine trying to have basically 32 NFL teams worth of scouts and front office people crammed on those sidelines. It's impossible.
Yeah, so this was a real, good year to be there and to be able to see as much as you saw. Not to mention the Giants have the 6th overall pick.
Correct. The coaching carousel, at least in terms of head coaches, has ended. Everyone has filled their jobs. Dan Quinn to the Washington Commanders was the last box to check on that little bingo card of coaching changes. Seattle obviously bringing in Mike McDonald from Baltimore. The upset was Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, so he'll be a hot name next year's coaching cycle, along with Mike Vrabel, who did not get a job, and Bill Belichick, who did not get a job. So some big coaches left without a seat at the table when the music stopped playing.
Well, Pete Carroll's also still out there.
He is.
He has not announced a retirement from coaching yet.
Good point.
So even though Seattle bumped him up to the front office, that does not mean he is precluded from coming back to the sideline.
Absolutely. And the crazy stat I heard is that at one point this offseason, more than half of the offensive coordinator jobs in the league changed hands.
Wow.
It was that crazy. And I believe right now Mike Kafka might be the only remaining play-calling offensive coordinator left from the start of that season. That's how much change there's been. I'm not sure if that's correct, but there's very, very few when you go down the list. That's how many guys have changed. Now, some head coaches that also call plays are still in place, like the Sean McVays of the world, the Zach Taylor of the world, stuff like that. But in terms of the OCs that call plays, guys are just all over the place. It's nuts.
Now, how's this for a number? And I did not confirm it, but it was a reputable, confirmed source on Twitter. It was a real reporter. It wasn't just some blogger. He wrote there are 8 teams going into this season that did not change either head coach, an offensive coordinator, or a defensive coordinator.
Oh, and 2 of those teams are probably the ones in the Super Bowl.
5 of them were playoff teams.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of what teams
But
they would be.
that's how brutal the turnover has been this offseason.
Trying to think, is it even 5?
What
5 teams would it be?
Let's see. I believe it was. You know what? I got to call it up. I got to see if I can find it.
Hold on, because I want to go here and look at the NFL playoff teams, and then we'll get to the college All-Star games here, folks. But
Let me see if I can find it. It was a great stat.
And by the way, the other thing that's interesting too, while you look for that, is that actually more of the coaches hired this cycle were defensive minded than offensive minded.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that, some teams I think because of the job that Campbell's done in Detroit, they're looking for kind of that tone-setting head coach rather than the play-calling head coach. Kind of like the CEO culture setter type. So I think that kind of lends itself to maybe some more defensive coaches. And I think, frankly, the offensive coach trees have kind of been picked dry over the years. You don't want to if you don't want to hire a first-year coordinator, we just talked about all the turnover you have in the coordinators, right? You're running out of guys like the Bobby Slokes of the world have only been doing it for 1 year. You don't necessarily want to hire a guy like that. So I think teams are starting to go a little bit more to that side of the ball. So let's see. The Bills, they had interims, so I'm not sure you want to count them because those guys were hired full-time. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. No, and they hired a new defensive coordinator anyway. They promoted their linebackers.
Yes, correct.
So, no, they don't count.
They don't count.
The Miami Dolphins lost Vic Fangio. They don't count. The Baltimore Ravens lost Mike McDonald. They don't count. The Pittsburgh Steelers changed they changed their offensive coordinator. They brought in Arthur Smith, who I think is a great fit for Pittsburgh.
Right.
So that doesn't count. The Cleveland Browns, I believe, they hired a new coordinator. I believe they lost their offensive line coach, Brian Callahan, which is a huge deal. So that
maybe I should not have announced this Twitter item.
Was their coordinator Van Pelt?
No, they just hired Van Pelt.
They just hired him.
I agree. Yeah, so he's
the
a new
Patriots
coordinator.
hired Van Pelt.
Oh, was he with them?
Yeah,
I don't
think
remember.
So.
So maybe that could be one of the teams. The Texans, they did not have anybody snipe their offensive or
Correct.
defensive coordinator, so that would be one of the teams.
Kansas City.
Well, and they're still in it, so nobody could have even if they wanted to. So
and, of course, San Francisco.
I barely want to keep those. So San Francisco would be 3. The Cowboys lost Dan Quinn. The Eagles changed both their guys. The Lions are running it back. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are back.
Yep.
So that's a good one.
There's 4.
Packers changed their defensive coordinator. The Bucs lost their offensive coordinator, and the Rams lost their defensive coordinator. Yeah, so 4. There's your 4.
So we think it's 4. I thought he said that there was 5, but okay.
Was that before Dallas lost Quinn?
Yeah, it might have been because I didn't check the timestamp on the post.
That might have been before Dallas lost Quinn, but
didn't check the timestamp.
So again, you're right. There's just a lot of turnover, and there was word this morning that Andy Bischoff is going to go be the run game coordinator, among other things, for Jim Harbaugh in L.A.
Yeah.
So he was a Giants tight ends coach for the people that don't know that. Really good coach, really good dude. Gonna miss him. But again, you get to be a run game coordinator. That's getting closer to coordinator status. It's technical lateral move, but the Giants let him go for the good opportunity. And my guess is that and we interviewed her and she told us all about this when she was down coaching tight ends at the Shrine Bowl. Angela Baker was in the tight ends room with Andy Bischoff this year anyway as the Giants offensive assistant. So again, the Giants haven't announced anything, but I think a natural fit. I know they love the job Angela's done here. They're the one that's recommended her to coach at the Shrine game. So I would imagine she'd likely be elevated, or there's a decent chance she'd be elevated to that spot. No one in the organization has told me that. That's just me connecting the dots here in terms of what they might do.
I think it's important to note, John, I had some questions on this on Twitter last week, and I knew the answer, but maybe you can expand on it a bit as to how it actually manifested itself. The Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, when they get their coaching staffs together, they ask all the non-playoff teams to nominate people from their staff who they might like to be in the game.
That's correct.
Okay? And so as it turned out, the Giants had a whole bunch of people.
Ended up having 4 coaches there because they ended up getting the special teams coach that they hired this offseason, Gabriel, who was the assistant for the Jets, ended up being a coordinator the Giants hired.
Right.
So they ended up having a second to the
along
Tierney,
with Mike Adams
Gabriel,
was in the other game.
Adams, Kafka, Baker. So actually they had 5 coaches. Correct.
Now, I didn't talk, I just knew the rule. Did you talk to anybody from the bowl committees as to when they get those nominations, how they sort through them?
Pearson, is the Roman Oben Insider up yet?
Is that up?
It is? Yeah. So I interviewed Roman Oben down there. He basically runs that for the league.
Oh, wow.
And he
Oh, good buddy.
Yes. So he basically explained how that whole thing works. So go check out the
Love
Insider, and
when
he
did it go
breaks
up?
it down.
When did it go up, Pearson?
Late last Saturday. So I
see
talked
it.
to him on the field. It's up there. Everybody should go check that out. And
Excellent.
he basically talks about how the league then sorts through who goes where, what coaches get named for this and that, and then people vote. There's this whole committee, and it's a whole thing that gets decided that he works with the bowl games on.
And-
So go check. It's a good way for me to promote some content. Go check out that
There you
Roman
go.
Logan
See?
Insider on Giants.com and the Giants.
And this is particularly fortuitous this year with the Giants because they've got the 6th pick. Coach Tierney had an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator at one of the games. Kafka had an opportunity to be head coach at one of the games. So those are really high positions.
Now, odds are,
you know,
the 6th pick is not going to be at one of these All-Star games, but for your 2 second-round picks, that's a different conversation.
Or it could even tell you about guys you really like that you know you can go down to get.
Yeah, or guys that are on day
That too.
3, undrafted free agents, all
Sure,
that stuff. 100%.
Sure. So this was a good year for the Giants to have a lot of guys picked for those games.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're basically putting together 4 full staffs.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, it's non-playoff teams, right? So you're looking at 16, no, now less than that, right? 14 teams, 4 staffs. You're going to get, by minimum, just by a numbers game, 2 coaches off each staff at a minimum, right?
You would think. I mean, I can't imagine why an organization would not nominate a coach.
Oh, no,
to
they
go.
would. I'm sure everyone nominated who
I'm
they
sure.
wanted to nominate,
You
for
would have to believe that.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the All-Star games, Paul. I got to be honest with you. I was working, so I didn't even have a chance to watch it. I did not watch the Shrine Bowl game. I know you always make a note to watch that. I was rewatching the Senior Bowl game last night. I'm not going to lie, I fell asleep in the 4th quarter. So it was around 12:30 at night, and I just ran out of gas. And I woke up like at 2:30 in the morning with the DVR at the end, and I'm like, nope, missed that 4th quarter. Was disappointed. Well, let's start with the Shrine game first. Why don't you talk
I
about
had
what you
college
saw?
basketball.
Oh, so you didn't see it either?
I didn't. I have a copy, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. I have not watched that yet either. Okay, so let's talk about the Senior Bowl game.
Yes, that I did see. and actually, I wanted to ask you questions about some of these guys.
Yes, and by the way, we did talk about the Shrine players a lot last week. If you
Yes,
go
we
back
did.
and look at the show,
We did.
what happens in practice is more important. But you guys should go check that out. And what is that, NFL Plus? Is that what the Shrine game? Shrine Bowl
That's
is
where
on
I got to
NFL
go.
Plus, right?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm gonna have to. I got to go find it.
Yes,
I'm sure
All right.
it's there.
Senior Bowl questions from you, and I'm happy to go through all these players with you. The one thing I'll say, I was disappointed that Michael Penix did not play in the game. He was suited up. He didn't play.
Right.
I don't know why he wouldn't want to play. Bo Nix just played 2 possessions, if I recall
Right, 2
correctly.
possessions, 4 for 5.
And obviously some of the guys that, kind of left because of injury or in the week didn't play in the game either. So the game is a big deal for them down there. Jim Nagy does a great job putting it together.
No
But
doubt.
in terms of the analysis, it's not a huge deal. So anyway, why don't you pepper me with questions? That might be the best way to do it.
I'll give you a few.
Otherwise, I can ramble on for like 30 minutes on the bajillion players I saw. So
These
why
are
don't you
notes.
Focus it for me.
These are notes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are notes I took off the game.
Mm-hmm.
Just from watching the game. I've seen half of the Shrine Bowl video. Not the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl video. I haven't seen all of it. So what I want to know from you when I ask you about some of these guys that showed me some things I was interested in during the game, if they also showed it during the week.
Sure.
I think that's the fairest way to go about this. Because I know some people are going to want to know about some of these players. Offensive line. 2 guys showed me something really that made me very intrigued in the game. UConn's Christian Hayes. He's a guard. And Texas A&M guard Layden Robinson. Both of those guys showed me a lot during the games. Robinson's a big 330-pound moose, very aggressive, gets to the second level, really pushes the pile. Hayes, tough, anchors, drive blocker. I liked what I saw in the game from both of those guys. Did they show you the same thing during the week?
Robinson wasn't great for me during the week. He struggled a little bit with
And by the way,
movement.
his college career, he was very inconsistent.
And quick guys gave him trouble in pass protection. So, yeah, big guy. Handled power okay, but I'm not sure he's a guy that you want starting as a pass protector. Christian Haynes is a different story. I think he could sneak into the 3rd round in this draft. He pass protected well. Got overpowered a couple times over the course of the game. What did he end up weighing in on the final total there? 318. That's pretty good for a guard. 33 and 7/8 inch arms, which is good for a guard as well. So that's good arm length for a guy that plays that position. He was good during the week. Christian Haynes did a nice job. I think he's a day 2 pick. At some point.
All right, so those were the 2 offensive linemen I saw good things from in the game itself. Defensive line, Braden Fisk, Florida State defensive tackle, was very, very active. penetrated the line of scrimmage all day, almost had a safety, came up with 4 tackles, and was basically a nightmare in the game.
Yeah, he's a guy that you're going to have to find a role for because he's only 290 pounds, and he's a defensive tackle.
I know.
So you're going to have to find again, he weighed in at 295, talking to Tony Pauline, which, by the way, you could check out on the draft season podcast that we do here. He thinks he probably played closer to 280 this year at Florida State. So remember, he's a Western Michigan transfer because he wanted to go to Florida. He's an older player. I believe he's 25. We did talk to him. He's one of the interviews on that Giants Huddle podcast from last week. He's somebody that is explosive coming out of his stance. He gets on the offensive lineman quick. He's very violent. He can work past people. He does a really, really nice job. But again, he's a little undersized. So if you want a quick one-gap penetrator that you don't need to take on blocks and maybe you want to play him in passing situations and maybe not so much on first and second down in the run game, I think he would be your guy. So I did like him. I think he could be a day 2 pick as well.
All right. So those are a couple of the guys on the line of scrimmage that just drew my attention from watching the game.
He was good, Fisk. He was fun.
Let's go back to the quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler obviously was the game MVP. But
mostly because of one 29-yard pass to Rosemary Jackson.
Right.
Roseman Jackson.
Yeah, the fade for the touchdown. Yes. Nix was 4 for 5. I loved his 2-yard dart that he threw across his body down near the goal line. But to be frank, it wasn't like I was going to be bowled over by what I saw from the quarterbacks in that game.
No,
but those two guys had the best quarterbacking games of
Bo
the
Nix
day.
was fine, and he was fine all week. I wouldn't move him up or down based on what I saw at the Senior Bowl. I think for college, for quarterbacks, you got to look at the tape. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Watch the college tape and, see how the ball comes out of their hands. The one thing I will say walking out of the game is that Sam Hartman, I just don't know if he is the arm.
Oh, I didn't like what I saw during the week from him on the highlights.
He kind of reminds me of again, I don't want to put this label on him because it has a very bad connotation. Don't
go anywhere.
He's a guy that I think is your second or third string guy who's going to be really smart, is going to get the ball where you want it to go. He's a decent athlete. He can run a little bit, but again, I just don't know if he has a big enough arm. Spencer Rattler, on the other hand, he checks all the boxes from a physical standpoint.
Yes.
He's got a really good arm. He can move around. He's only 6 feet tall, so he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he certainly has everything physical you would want from the quarterback position. I would not be surprised that an NFL team in round 3 said, you know what, we like the tools. We're going to roll the dice here, get him in our building, and see if we can develop him. That wouldn't shock me for a Spencer Rattler.
He's a guy that's going to need some polish.
Yeah, sure.
No question about that.
Yeah, but he's got the tools.
He does.
And so does Joe Milton, by the way. Now, the
Milton
pass,
is so erratic.
He's got a good arm. You just don't know where it's going.
Right.
Like you know, like when you have you like trying to calibrate what you're doing. Like you have something that's just shooting all over the place, but you got to calibrate it.
When he throws
straight.
the ball,
he needs some calibration.
How about this, Ryan Perrilloux?
Oh my gosh, Ryan Perrilloux. Oh my gosh. Sure, Ryan Perrilloux.
Well, 120-mile-an-hour fastball, right? You just don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
That was Ryan Perrilloux.
I'll buy that. I must have been my memory of Ryan Perrilloux is not great.
Well, he was up and down the practice squad 9 times in one season.
I will reiterate that my memory of watching Ryan Perrilloux play football is not the best.
All right. Not much to speak of with the receivers, and I know you talked about the North Carolina receiver during the week. He did not help himself.
No, again, it wasn't
Walker.
It wasn't drops in the game for Devontae Walker, but it was inability to come up with contested catches.
He didn't make plays.
And he kept trying to go with one hand instead of two, which I didn't understand. Like, get your second hand free and try to catch with 2 hands. But he's fast and he gets open. And he only, in the regular season, Paul, he only had 3 drops at UNC. So it's not like drops were an issue for him in college. So I think teams might be willing to overlook that a little bit. But no, I don't think his inconsistency catching the football during the week necessarily helped him.
All right, a couple of running backs. TCU's Amani Bailey and Missouri's Corey Schrader. Now, Schrader, 5 catches for 54 yards. He showed good hands, and he was good coming out of the backfield.
And that was big for him. A couple different people told me that one thing they needed him to show during this week was to be a better receiver out of the backfield. He wasn't doing that again at Missouri. Did that a lot at Missouri. Look, he was super productive. I think he had 1,600 rushing yards in college, if memory serves me right. I just don't see the explosion, the suddenness, and the speed. Someone called him an outside zone running back to me, where you kind of like go hit the hole and then get one cut up. His testing, I think, is going to be very, very important.
I would agree with
on
that.
Where he goes.
I would agree with that. Bailey ran 10 times for 53 yards, 4 catches for 34. and he tracked down that interception down at the 2-yard line or whatever it was.
He's 5'7", 208.
Well, short. I won't say little. When you're 208 pounds, you're not little.
No, especially at 5'7", you're actually pretty thick
short.
at 5'7", 208.
Yes.
Here's the problem. I don't think, just watching him, if you're that size, you better run a sub 4.5.
Yeah, I don't think he will.
I don't think he's going to.
I don't think he will either.
So that, I think, is going to be something
fun
that
to watch
holds
him,
back
though.
a little bit. Yeah, no, he
did some good things in the game.
I felt bad. The one kid that I liked that was a little bit smaller, and I don't think, again, I was in and out of the game. The Florida State running back, the USC running back did not play in the game, correct? Marshawn Lloyd?
I did not see him.
I did not see him either. He was the best running back there for me at 5'9", 217. He's a guy that I think could be in a rotation in an NFL backfield next year. And the other guy I felt bad for was Rasheen Ali out of Marshall, 5'11", 204.
Okay.
Showed a lot as a receiver during the week. He tore his bicep at one of the practices. No one quite knows how he did it. It's a weird injury to get while playing football. Usually that's a weight room injury. So feel for the kid. And that'll probably knock him out a lot of this, training stuff at the combine and all that stuff. But he actually was looking pretty good as a receiver out of the backfield before he suffered that injury, which was too bad.
A couple of defensive guys I want to throw at you here. In the defensive backfield, there were a bunch of guys who made plays in the Senior Bowl. As we know, Milton had a couple of picks that he threw. There was the overthrow to Smith-Wade, and then there was Evan Williams, who made a really nice read, who showed incredible range as a safety to come over all the way from one side of the field into the middle to come up with a pick. I don't know. Did those guys do much during the week that made you feel good about them?
Safeties are hard. I struggle in practice with safeties and linebackers because you're not tackling, you're not hitting, you're not reading at full speed. It's hard for me to judge those players well off of practice. I've always said that. I did not notice Evan Williams in the practice fields. Jarvis Brownlee, the cornerback at Louisville, him I did notice. He was one of the better cornerbacks there. He ran routes for receivers a couple times during practice, which means he anticipated them well and was able to make plays. So I did like Jarvis Brownlee over the course of the week. I think he's probably a slot guy. He's a little smaller, so I don't think he's going to be an outside corner. I think he's a slot.
He had good position on the pick by Hartman. Hartman did not throw that correctly.
Correct.
He threw it inside. It was a bad throw.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you could make a case it was a bad decision too.
And I need to go back and watch.
But the DB made the play.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch Brownlee's college tape. I had not watched him previously to go into the Senior Bowl, but based on what I saw, third, fourth round pick, something like that, maybe a fourth rounder, probably more likely than not.
And then there were two linebackers. Well, there was McCaffrey, of course. Everybody knows the McCaffrey family.
Again, I just don't know
stab.
how he's going to test.
Yeah,
and that's
we don't know. And then defensively, a couple of linebackers will throw at you. North Carolina's Cedric Gray.
I like Cedric Gray, Paul. I thought that he was pretty good during the week, too. I thought he was active in the run game. He had a couple pass breakups, too. I was actually pretty impressed with Cedric Gray over the course of the week. I liked him.
He covers ground. He gets around.
No, good player. I like him.
A couple of passes defense, too.
Yep.
And Trevin Wallace, 6 tackles, and he seemed like he was on the other side of the line of scrimmage a lot.
Yeah, Trevin Wallace, I didn't.
He is out of Kentucky.
He's Kentucky, 33-inch arms, 6'1", 244, so good size. 33-inch arms, which is also pretty good for an inside linebacker. Did not notice him a ton during the week. And again, I think linebackers are tough.
Yep.
But no, I do not have anything big on him. I did not talk to him either over the course
All right,
of the
so
week.
those were the guys who, like, during the game intrigued me. And I saw some things. I was like, I'd like to know what else they showed. So,
so
that's what I got.
Here's what I'll do for fun. I'm going to run through the guys I think will be first-round picks that were at the game. How about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
You okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, I think so.
Pearson, we also had a chance to do another interesting promo video for the show with that right there.
See, this Pepsi can doesn't have a top on the bottle.
Well, maybe it should, the way you just bumped into that table.
Okay.
All right, so these are the guys I think will be first-round picks coming out of this game. Then I'll mention some day 2 guys I like, too.
Yeah.
I'll try to do this as quickly as possible because we have a full bank of calls. I know people want to talk to us about stuff. I think Bo Nix will figure out a way to get in the back end of the first round.
I do, too.
Again, that's off his tape more than what he did at the game.
I know.
Penix Jr., I was listening to, the Athletic Football Show, the GM that does the podcast on Saturdays. He's a former Seahawk general manager before the Pete Carroll regime. Anyway, he has him as a first-round pick. I don't see that myself. But, again, he's a quarterback. You never know with quarterbacks. All you need is one guy to fall in love with him. He can go in the first round.
I will tell you this.
But I would say likely not.
A retired scout told me there will be some teams that might have him as low as 3rd round.
Yeah, dude, they might have guys that don't have grades on him with his injuries.
Now, he didn't want to go that far because he didn't know the medicals. He goes, I don't want to assume too much.
Right.
But he said, even if the medicals are pretty good, the history of those 4 seasons that were cut short by injury, there are going to be some automatically, even if he passes all of his physicals now, they're going to tell you he's 3rd round. That's it.
No,
Which,
look,
I'm sorry for you Penix fans out there, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. Randy Mueller, that's the former GM.
Yep.
Again, I don't have him. I don't think he's going to get there, but who knows? You never know. It's a quarterback. Again, all it takes is one team to fall in love with him to make it happen. That's all
One
it takes.
team.
Let's see. Kingsley Suamatai, the offensive tackle from BYU. I think he will be a first-round pick. And, boy, 6'4", 330, 34.25-inch arms. Checks every box from a size perspective, and he can move guys. He is athletic. I think he will be a top 25 pick. Jackson Powers-Johnson will be the first interior offensive lineman taken, depending on what you think of Troy Fontenot from Washington. He will be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
He was – I remember we talked a few years ago how good Creed Humphrey was at the Senior Bowl, and he was better than what Creed Humphrey was. And Creed Humphrey is a really good NFL player.
Yes, he is.
Jackson Powers-Johnson was fantastic, and he can play guard and center. He's not center only,
right?
Which will also, I think, help him, though. If you can get a 330-pound center, I think that really helps you what you can do in terms of power stuff at the line of scrimmage. Taliese Fuanga from Oregon State, 6'5", 330, 333, and almost a half-inch arms.
Yeah. Hard not to like him.
Good player. He's going to, right tackle, really, only at the game. But I could see him with his athleticism moving to left, but he was mostly right tackle at the game. Jordan Morgan, I think, is going to be right on the edge of a first-round pick. I did not think he had a great week at guard, at tackle. I think some teams will have him as a guard in the NFL. Just under 33-inch arms, which I think will be a red flag for some teams, but he is 6'5", 312. Leitu Latu from UCLA, the pass rusher, he will certainly be a first-round pick.
And yet, remember, John, the injury factor that he did take 2 years off because of the neck. Some teams will downgrade him a full round.
I agree, but I think he'll get into the first round anyway.
Well, his production, the last 2 years, 23 and a half sacks.
Best pass rusher in college football.
Ridiculous.
Period.
He got it done.
Quinion Mitchell, he'll be a first-round pick. So what am I up to? 6 or 7 already. Yep, out of Toledo. He's going to be a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Guyton.
He'll be the first corner taken.
No, I don't think.
You don't think?
I don't think he'll be the first corner taken.
Okay.
You have the 2 Alabama kids, and then you have the Clemson kid as well. Not Nate Wiggins. No, maybe it is Nate Wiggins. The Clemson corner, I think, will probably maybe go ahead of him too. But he'll be one of the first 3 or 4 guys taken.
Okay.
I would say. Top 3 or 4. Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. He could be a top 15 pick, I think, in this year's draft. Tavondre Sweat, if you want a big defensive tackle, he might figure out a way to
emphasis on big
to get in there and do it. Chris Braswell, I think, will come right just out of that first round. So those are the guys I think could be first round picks. You look at almost 10 players from the Senior Bowl that were really good, and then you have guys that'll be day 2 picks that are really good, like Ladd McConkey. Roman Wilson's going to be a good day pick 2. Wide receiver Malachi Corley will be a day 2 pick. He'll be very good. Bunch of guards. Dominic Pooney will probably be a day 2 pick. Roger Rosengarten, the tackle out of Washington, I thought he had a good week. He'll be a day 2 pick. Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan, he'll probably be a day 2 pick. He had a nice week. Peyton Wilson, depending on again what teams think of his injuries, out of NC State, he'll be a day 2 pick. Javon Bullard, Cameron Kitchens could be day 2 picks. The defensive back / safety. So again, a lot of really good players down there, and it was really, really fun to watch.
How much did you get to see Braswell during the week?
Yeah, I watched him a lot.
All right. I have questions about him. I'm not sure.
What are your questions?
I don't think he has enough strength and power to hold up.
Well, it depends on how you want to use him.
Well, he's going to have to be a situational player. He's a situational pass rusher for me. He's not a full-time player.
He's just as strong as Kayvon Thibodeau is. He's almost 260 pounds.
I know.
And he actually made sure he showed off a lot of bull rush and stuff over the course of the week.
Well, that's why I'm asking you. I didn't see everything during the course of the week. I
funny.
want to know how did his power and his leverage and his strength play in the one-on-ones?
Well, it did. It played well.
It did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And when I talked to him, and again, he's one of the interviews on that Giants Huddle podcast, I said, Braswell, Chris, it looked like, at Alabama, you showed a lot of speed off the edge. You got around the edge. You were a really good
I
speed
see him
rusher.
as more of that guy.
And I said, but when you did one-on-one pass rush shows this week, it looked like you were trying to bull rush a lot. I'm was that part of your calculation, trying to show teams you do that? He kind of smiles. He goes, yep.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was trying to do. So the message definitely got across from the agent.
Thank you.
That's what NFL teams wanted to see. And I thought he actually showed pretty good strength in that regard. I was not.
Well, that's good.
That did not frighten me.
Okay, so then he could sneak into the bottom of the first round.
He is a shot at it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Here's one interesting piece of his one nugget that I got from down there. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure if was that told to me off the record. I think it was. I will not give you
Let
that
it go.
interesting piece of nugget then.
We'll
Yes.
just let that fly right by.
It was about a different team in the division from a player that got drafted last year. That
Okay.
was interesting. But now that I think about it, I don't think that was an on the record. Hey, John, did you know this? So I will leave that in my back pocket.
Indeed.
Yes. All right, 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Guys, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. I mentioned it a bunch of times already on the show. We had a lot of content from the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. Go check it out. That's presented by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Interviews of players at the Shrine, at Senior Bowl. Jordan Reed recaps everything. Go check it out, Giants.com, Giants mobile app. Search for it on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Giants Huddle. Same for Draft Season, our draft podcast. Just search for Draft Season. It's on all of our content pages. Even if you're not a Giants fan, you're listening to this, it's just a draft podcast. We don't focus on Giants. It's all draft. Tony, Pauline, and I, next episode will be coming out next couple of days, and we will recap everything that happened in those two games and in the game itself on Sunday. All right. Again, if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave 5-star reviews for all of our podcasts, including this one. It really does help us out. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's lead off with Kevin in New York. He'll be first up. Kevin, what's up?
How y'all doing today? Listen all the time.
Hello. Thank you.
Yep. I just got some things to say about the draft. I think we should take Brock Bowers at 6 because if you look at the teams that's in the Super Bowl, they got dominant tight ends. And I think he'll help Daniel Jones in the offensive line.
Well, he isn't much of a
With the
blocker,
being a
though.
safe haven.
No, Jackie, he's not much of a blocker. That's the thing. He'll try. He'll
Right.
work hard at it, but he's not. He's more of a move tight end than he is a two-way tight end. Now, granted, so is Travis Kelce, and that's just fine.
Correct.
So if you're going to be dominant, I have no problem taking that type of player there. I don't know for sure he's going to be there at 6. I got to be honest with you. I think there's a good chance he would be, but I don't think it's a guarantee. I think, given the Giants situation, I would pick the guy I think that's going to be a 1A wide receiver before I pick the guy that's going to be a 1A tight end.
Now, understand, too, at this point, Waller is still under contract, and they haven't decided what they're going to do with him, whether or not he does come back or they decide to make an economic move. We don't know the answer to that, but he's here, and he was brought in to be a 1,000-yard receiving threat. That was his purpose. So if you're going to draft Bowers at 6, he is, again, a video game tight end.
And here's the other thing, part of it, too, right? You draft a tight end that high, you're really not saving much money.
That's for sure.
Because you're paying him, 6th overall picks making, $7-8 million a year,
He's
$6 million
making
a year?
A big nut right out of the box.
So you're not saving much from what you would be paying a top tight end, as opposed to a top wide receiver. Like if you get a Malik Neighbors or a Roma Dunze there, that guy in the open market's making $30 million, literally. So it's a big difference in terms of the value. And really, I was talking to a couple people, down there at these two All-Star games, and they pointed out that, look, these top wide receivers just don't become available anymore. You can't find them. They don't hit free agency. You have to trade for them. And, as valuable as Bowers is, history has shown you could find really good tight ends end of the first round, early second round that are going to be good players. So if I had my choice and I'm the Giants with their roster and I'm choosing between Neighbors, Adunze, and Bowers, Bowers would be the third guy on my list, and he'd probably be behind the two offensive tackles at the top of the draft.
Wasn't the rookie from the Lions on the all-rookie tight end team this year?
Yep, Sam Laporta.
And Laporta was a second rounder.
Second team All-NFL, yep. He was a very high second-round pick, but he was a second-round pick.
Yeah, so, you don't have to go top 10 to get even a video game tight end. You don't have to.
Okay. And Xavier McKinney, what kind of contract do you think he's going to get? Because I think he'll be valuable with us bringing him back.
I don't know. The safety market's tough.
Very hard.
I think you're probably, what he's going to want is Jesse Bates money. He's probably not going to get Jesse Bates money, is my guess. I hate to put numbers on it. Let me look at what PFF has him tagged at for what he'll likely get.
Here's the one thing to remember about McKinney, okay? He had a sensational second half of the season. His first half of the season was not nearly as productive as his second half. So if you get the itch to give him a big deal off of just the second half of the season, are you reaching a little bit? You have to take that into account. I mean, think about it. You watched, right? You would agree he was a much better player the second half of the year, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Very much so.
So you got to be careful not to pay a guy for 17 games of production when only half of that season was of the elite caliber. Okay. And I'm sure he's already made overtures in the press that he's looking to get to the bank.
So let's see. PFF, what they will do, they will take based on contracts, and they usually do a pretty good job with this. They project him at 12.5 a year.
Wow. Okay,
that's a beefy number.
Is there a safety in the draft that you think we can get that can have the same production?
No.
No?
I do not believe there is a first-round caliber safety in this year's draft.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. You answered my questions.
No problem. Appreciate the call. I know you have to pick and choose who you bring back and who you want to pay. And you have to prioritize. It's just, that's the way the league is.
Every offseason, you get the same questions. We only have so much money, and we can only pay so many guys. And, is that a top priority when you do have a Pinnock and a Belton and a Javarius Owens who was redshirted, but they think a lot of? Now, they may never, none of those three guys, you don't know, may never give you the kind of half season that McKinney just gave you this year. They may never reach that level. That's entirely possible. The question becomes, can they be good enough in the overall scope of things to do what you want to do without having to open up the bank?
Yeah, good question. Tim in Charleston, he's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hey, Tim, what's going on?
Hey, guys. So I got a fundamental question because I've been under the weather for a few days, and I haven't been reading the post-sports on the Giants or following everything on your website like I usually do. Have we replaced Wink yet?
Nope.
We replaced Wink yet?
Defensive coordinator spot is still open. Interviews are ongoing. The Giants don't announce who they're interviewing, but if you look at some of the reports, some of the people that they had been reported to have interviewed took jobs elsewhere. So they're, still going through the process in some way, shape, or form. And you would think sometime in the next week or so, we'll know who it's going to be.
Hard to say.
Okay.
Who knows? They could be waiting for somebody that's on one of these Super Bowl teams that we don't know about, too. I mean, there's just no way to know.
And yet there's still a possibility it could be inside, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just don't. We said the other day on the program while John was at the bowl games or the All-Star games that truly this is a mystery to all of us. Nobody has been a fly on the wall in Coach Dable's office or Joe Shane's office. So we're going to be right out front and tell you we don't know. We really don't.
Mm-hmm. And then to the draft, I still feel like, it would be nice to get a 1A wide receiver, a 1 wide receiver at that 6th pick. But still, if the quarterbacks don't have time to get the ball downfield, they're not going to be able to get it to them. So I still feel like whoever, and I know you can't just draft by position alone. I understand that, but I still feel like if we can come out of that draft with the best tackle, so that we have, because as also I've said before, I mean, Andrew Thomas has been hurt a fair amount. Evan Neal's been hurt a lot. So that way you would have 3 tackles and the two best ones, healthiest ones.
No, Tim, look, I would have no problem if they took an offensive tackle with that pick. Zero problem. I was just mentioning the receivers with the last caller because he brought up the tight end. So I figured he was looking for a weapon, which is why I brought the receivers up. But I don't know what I would do yet, to be honest with you. I'm still kind of on the fence. I have not made that decision yet. In terms of tackle or wide receiver at that spot. Those are the 2 spots that I'm looking at, assuming the first 3 picks are all quarterbacks, which I think we all, at this point, would be pretty darn surprised if that's not the case. But no, I would have no issue if they took – look, offensive tackle's a premium spot, wide receiver's a premium spot, and one reason why I would lean towards offensive tackle is because, A, much like wide receivers, they rarely become available. At least top wide receivers get traded sometimes.
Right.
Top offensive tackles don't even get traded. They just don't leave.
Right.
They stay there forever. And I also believe that you might be able to find the number 1 wide receiver with your first, second-round pick. Or if you want to package something to move up, that's how good this wide receiver class is. Like, if you walk away and you move up in the back end of the 2nd round with Adonai Mitchell from Texas or a Tony Franklin from Oregon.
I'm a big Franklin guy.
Now, the problem is that Franklin and Hyatt, I think, are a little bit redundant with each other.
I know.
So I'm not sure they match together.
I know.
But if, Mitchell might not even be a first-round pick. Or if he's the very end of the first round, maybe you can move up and grab him there when you package your other 2 up or something like that. Then you can walk away with a top tackle and a top wide receiver. I'm not sure, on the other hand, that a top offensive tackle that you feel good about plugging in and starting year 1 at tackle and being a good player is going to be available past pick 20. So that, I think, is going to be much tougher, which would make me, in terms of from a strategic perspective, lean towards tackle.
See, because so many of the college programs have gone to the spread offenses and throwing so much, you've had a better development recently of the wide receiver position.
Well, and 7-on-7, high school football,
No question. It's become a very, very big thing coming up through the ranks to throw the football, right? Video game football has taken over. And so now you've got a tremendous amount of talent out there now that's finally reaching to the NFL level. So, yeah, I said this the other day, John, and I mean this. Think about it. Jalen Hyatt was a third-round pick for the Giants, and I don't want to put a ceiling on how good he can be. He's convinced me in a lot of ways that he's going to be a lot better than what I maybe thought originally when he came out. And I don't want to put a ceiling on him, but there's got to be 3 rounds of absolutely impactful wide receivers in this draft. There could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there are. Absolutely. Now, again, I think what the Giants need, Tim, is a true one. Because I do think they have guys that can do, like Hyatt's a great deep threat. Wanda Robinson's a great slot guy. Darius Slayton can do a little bit of everything, right? So I think they have guys that are good complementary wide receivers, but I think what they're missing is the alpha. And that's the problem. Alphas are tough to find, which is why, Roma Dunze is sitting there at 6'3", 217. He runs a 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine, and you think he's going to be your Julio Jones for the next 12 years. By the way, do you know what his contested catch rate was in college?
Odunze?
Yeah.
No.
67%. Guys don't get to 50.
Doesn't surprise me.
67%. And that's not a small sample.
No, not at all.
I mean, and look, he's really good, and Malik Neighbors looks like Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, I'm just going to say it the way I feel about it. That's how good he looks. So that's kind of where, look, you can't go wrong, Tim. Joe Alt, right. Woohoo! Olu Fashanu, woohoo! Neighbors, yeah. Dunze, great. I'd be thrilled with any of those guys. I'd be thrilled. So it's just a matter of picking the right guy because, look, we've said this before too, right? The chance that all 4 of those guys hit and are all pro players,
right?
Small. That just doesn't happen. And, it could be things like injuries or something that's unexpected that, or maybe just a situation they get drafted into that hurts those guys' careers. But they will all be legitimate blue chip players on my draft board when we get to draft night. And I don't carry that. I don't throw blue chip around lightly. I think I've had 2 or 3 period over the last 2 drafts combined. I think there are more blue chip players in this draft than there are in the last 2 put together.
We had talked last week when John wasn't here. We had pretty much kind of come up with a consensus, right? That we know in the top 10 there's going to be 3 quarterbacks. Is that the scuttlebutt you heard, right? 3 quarterbacks. Uh-huh. There'll be 3 wide receivers. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., we keep not mentioning him because he's just too good.
I'm assuming he's not going to get that. Correct.
Right? So
I'll tell you what, one scout, and not a Giant scout, a former scout, not a former Giant scout, whispered in my ear that talking to people in the league, there will be some people that have Neighbors as a top wide receiver in the draft.
But Harrison's not getting out of the top 10.
Top 10? He's not getting out of the top 5.
I know. Well, that's what I mean.
Let me put it this way.
I was giving you 10.
Well, we care about 5 though because the Giants are at 6.
But the
bottom line is that the Cardinals need a wide receiver at 4, and the Chargers need a wide receiver at 5.
Yeah,
he ain't getting by both of those.
No, he's not. But the point is that the Giants are at 6, so they're in the middle of the top 10, right? Basically, and we know there's going to be 3 quarterbacks in the top 10, 3 receivers in the top 10, probably 2 offensive linemen. In the top 10.
Could be 3.
Could be 3, but 2 for sure.
Yep.
Right, 2 for sure. We think Bowers is probably going to be in there.
Those are your 9.
Okay.
Those are your consensus top 9 top 9 players in the draft.
Okay, and if somebody's willing to ignore Latu's neck, he's the best pure pass rusher. He could possibly sneak into the 10th spot.
It would not shock me if Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner will get picked ahead of him just because
of the injury.
Tests. And he's going to test a lot better than Latu.
Okay.
Like, you watch Latu even up close at that Senior Bowl, Paul, his athleticism doesn't wow you. He's just a technician.
unbelievable production.
He's a technician.
No question.
He knows how to pass rush.
So the point is, I think you got a consensus like top 9 players. I think no matter who you talk to, you're going to get 9 somewhere in the top 10, which means if you're 6, you're a lock to get a blue chip player unless you trade out. Right?
So,
yeah.
Yep. So just 2 really quick other draft questions. Second, on day 2, we have 3 picks, right? 2 in second, 1 in third.
Mm-hmm.
How many total picks do we have at this point?
I believe the Giants have 7. They have 1 in every round except for the 7th round, I believe.
Okay. That's all I have, guys. Thanks for the call.
No, appreciate it.
It's 5 in the top 105, I think. Right, John?
I know it's 3 in the top 50.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Go ahead. I'll keep looking this up. You want to grab the next call?
Yeah, I can go to the next call. 201-939-4513. Marty in Manahawkin is up next. Marty, what's going on?
Hey, John, how you doing?
What's up,
John? Quick question. I know you were out at the Shrine game.
Yep.
I was wondering how the kid from Boston College looked, Christian Mahogany.
Mahogany? Yeah, he was good. He was one of the better offensive linemen there. Not as athletic as I would like, but I think he'd be a third-round type of guard, probably.
Yeah.
7 picks, by the way, for the Giants overall. It is 7.
Yep. They have 2 in round 2. They do not have a 7th round pick, but they have 1 pick in each of the other rounds.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep. And it's 5 in the first 107, which gets you to the early 4th round, which is the 3rd day. Is that it, Marty?
No, that's good. That's good, John. That's all I wanted to know.
Awesome. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate the call. Yeah, Mahogany was good. He was one of the better offensive linemen there. Him and Mason McCormick from South Dakota State, to me, were the 2 best interior linemen at that game. Mahogany's not a center. He's more of a straight-up guard. Big guy. I think he weighed in. I don't think I have my measurements in front of me. I think he weighed in around 320, 330. Typical Boston College interior offensive lineman. I mean, we've seen these guys a million times.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
He's not Zion Johnson, though. He's not that good.
No.
He would not be on that level. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones. I was trying to count the number of receivers in DJ's top 50. I will try to do that when we take our next call and listen to Jay in Brooklyn. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, John. Paul, how you doing, man?
What's up,
Good
Jay?
to talk to you.
Real quick. John, I want to go over something you said before you left out.
Yep, there goes my count. Okay.
You said that you would be surprised if, and I agree with you, that Giants will move away from the GM after year 3. You agree, right? I agree with that 100%.
I would fall off my chair, be shocked.
Yeah.
Be shocked.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I think you're 100% right on that. Being that that's the case, when you look at this roster, I'm very interested to see how Joe Sheen is going to go about building this roster this year. Because if what you say is correct, and I agree it is, if I'm Joe Sheen, just my opinion, I would use this year as my reset year.
Knowing Joe Shane the way I do, Jay, he is going to do what's in the best long-term interest of this franchise.
And I get it. I get what you're saying. I get what you're getting, and I agree with you.
This is not some win now mode offseason.
Exactly.
No, it's not at all.
Exactly.
Not at all. Which is why I still think trading the number 6 pick is not far-fetched.
And I think Giant fans are not going to want to hear this. My approach, if I'm the GM, is more approaching this year like we did the first year than we did the second year. Meaning, you have a number of players tied to long-term contracts. 4 of your top 5 offensive members on the offensive side of the ball all have huge question marks. Daniel Jones, Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, Evan Neal.
Well, how about Andrew Thomas would have to be in that group, and he does not have big questions.
No. Yes, that's why I said 4 out of your top 5.
Oh, 4 out of 5. I'm sorry, Jay. My bad. I misheard you. Okay.
He does have health issues, though.
Yeah, I know.
He's been hurt.
Right. Regardless of how we got there, right, Paul? Whether it's injury, whether it's inconsistent play, we're there.
Yep.
All right, we're there now.
Yep.
So if I'm the GM, I'm looking at that, and I am not. The salary cap space is what it is. I think the Giants fans have to understand they don't have $100 million in cap space. What I would do is, for instance, either Saquon is taking a franchise deal. I am not investing a long-term deal on a running back. I'm just sorry, I'm not doing it. I think for too many years, this running game has been built around a running back and not a running game. Daniel Jones, I'm not pushing any more money forward. He's going to make what he makes this year. I'm not, and Darren Waller's the same way. I'm not pushing any of their contract towards future years.
I agree with that.
They are what they are.
I would not.
And they're going to.
I would not touch either. I would not touch either of those contracts.
And I don't think Joe Shane will either.
No, I don't think he will either. I agree.
But that's one of the ways you create more cap space is by, and I wouldn't do that.
No, and look, I don't think, and Jay, I would, again, I don't. No one's told me this, but just knowing how Joe Shane operates, I would be surprised if they pushed money further into those deals for either of those players.
That is just not his way. I mean, when he came out of the Buffalo system, the pushing of money down the line for credit card fees was just not in his DNA.
I think there were 3 players, if you want to create cap space, there were 3 players that you can use to create cap space. It's Dexter, it's Andrew, and it's Okereke. Those are the 3 guys. If you want to, again, I would prefer not to, but if you want to, especially for a guy like Dexter, like if you want to throw a void year on Dexter Lawrence's contract, fine, whatever. That's okay. Those are the only 3 guys I would touch in terms of, moving money down the road.
Right, and this is not a year where I'm going to the free agents period and I'm signing big. You want to sign a guy like a perfect guy is the right tackle, right guard combination guy from the Patriots. A guy who's 26 years old, who's good. I forgot his last name, Kenwu, something like that.
I know
Omenahu?
No, not Omenahu. He was the defensive tackle that just tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Michael Onwenu, I believe.
Yes, him.
That's
sorry,
Michigan product.
Yep.
That's a perfect guy. A guy who's going to be here for the next 4 or 5 years, multiple positions. That's what I'm talking about. No vet. I just think, and Giant fans are not going to like this, and I'll let you go after this. My superstar players this year are coming from the draft. I'm not spending big time money in free agency, and I'm letting the season play out. Simple as that.
Yeah, look, what I would say, Jay, find your version, and you can find one of these guys. Find this year's version of Bobby Okereke at whatever position you sign him at. Whether it's guard, to your point, or somewhere else where you really think there's a need. Maybe it's your second corner, right? Because you are going to need a second cornerback at some point.
Well, that's not a doubt.
And maybe a third one, too. So, wherever you want to sign that one Bobby Okereke level contract, go do it. But I think aside from that, I don't think you're going out there and, trading a second-round pick and then paying T. Higgins $30 million. I don't think that's what's going to happen this offseason.
And again, just real quick, Giant fans have to understand. Most moderate Giant fans are not looking for this team to win 13 games next year. Okay? We're looking for improvement.
No, he said not looking. Not looking.
They're not looking.
Okay.
They're looking for the team to build out this core. They still need a lot of players to build out this team, make progressions, and improve next year.
Right.
That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for some big jump. I just hope Joe Shane goes that route. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think you have to worry about Joe. I don't think he's the kind of guy who wants to make a drastic, high-risk move.
No, he wants to build through the draft.
It's not him.
He wants to build through the draft. And
that's,
Jay, I think
that's what they did in Buffalo.
You should not. I think based on how you want the Giants to operate, I think you should feel pretty good about how they'll operate this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with John. I mean, I felt all along there'll be one somewhat big signing, just one, which they'll give a pretty large, sizable deal to, but they're not going to go to the elite level of free agency and just blow the bank on one guy.
If you had to,
there's going to be one solid signing, which is going to cost some money.
What position?
I'm going to say guard.
I agree. That's where I would hit too. And look, this is kind of where I'm landing now. Where you use your free agent money are at the non-premium positions. Guard, linebacker, safety.
Probably
because really good teams are often, Paul, willing to let guys leave at those positions. But they're not going to let their offensive tackles leave. They're not going to let their cornerbacks leave. They're not going to let their wide receivers leave. But if they have to trim money, they'll say, all right, well, we can find the linebacker. We could find the safety. We could find the guard. So that's where the best players often end up becoming available. And the biggest contract at those spots, they're not topping $15 million or so a year. Maybe the guard, you could get up to 17 or something like that. But you could get really good players that are some of the best at their position at reasonable contracts. That's the best way to use your free agent money, at least in my opinion. And you can throw tight ends into that mix too because they don't make a ton of money either.
Well, that's because the other spots are deemed so sexy and so needy that you have to overpay. When you go to free agency, you have to. The guy's a premium player, right? You're paying premium money plus
and odds
to
are
get him in free agency.
And the best guys at those spots never even get the free agency.
If they're even available.
So you're looking at third-tier players at premium positions that you have to then overpay.
So in terms
and
of...
the Giants have been there before, by the way.
Let's go back to John's abbreviated term, right? Pay per dollar, production per dollar.
Production per dollar.
Right? Which I love. I love that abbreviation, John. That's a really good one you came up with years ago. And when you look at the production per dollar, you're going to get poor production for dollar at the premium spots because you will pay more than you should.
Yep.
You just will. That's it.
I'm with you. 201-939-4513. 201-939-45513. Let's go to William in Long Island. I'm going to go back to try to count wide receivers. William, what's going on?
Hello, fellas. I appreciate the in-depth analysis you guys go through and the diligence and the patience that you have with all of us making these calls.
No, thank you for calling. Look, you don't have to thank us for taking your calls.
You're part of the show.
We love taking your calls. This is fun for us, and we thank everybody in the offseason for listening and calling in. Go ahead.
Hey, great. I'm with most of the majority here, and let's get a wide receiver, value for dollar, like you say. That's a no-brainer. You saw what Wan'Dale Robinson did the last couple games. You saw it Slayton when he got some balls he could actually catch. Hyatt will do okay. I just don't want Joe Shane, and he's not going to make the mistake of doubling down on another offensive lineman. So you can forget about a lineman over there just because he, at this point, has made a call on Evan Neal. You don't go doubling down on that. Do what you say. Just become average. Get one of these vets over there. We can't wait for guys to develop on the offensive line. You spent a lot of draft capital on those guys over the years. So, let's get wide receiver. Maybe there's a running back in the second round just to supplement Saquon, because I agree with Paul. I think they're going to keep him because of his leadership at a friendly number. And I think that, quarterback, like you say, maybe second, third round, something like that to develop. They need it. Daniel Jones, he needs an opportunity to have actually throw the ball instead of this year regressing as he did because he was running for his life. Anybody back there got hurt. So, it's a business decision as well for those folks. That's what I have to say on that. And one thing on your promo, Paul, I love you guys when you talk about game flow. You've got Michael Strahan on there talking to the offensive line. Hey, hold those guys. Touchdown and we're champs, right? I wish we had something from the offensive lineman a couple of minutes earlier saying, hey, Michael, we're up 10-7. 3 and out. 3 and out. 3 and out, and let us run the ball.
Next time I see Michael, I will tell him what you said. How about that?
Brady went 80 yards with 8 minutes to go, left about 2 minutes on the clock for Eli to do his thing. So, let's do a little flashback of revisionist stuff. Michael made a great career out of that, but hey, 3 and out. Yeah, I didn't see any offensive linemen doing that. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Good stuff. No, that was funny. Appreciate the call.
Oh,
all right,
wow.
So guess how many of Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 players are wide receivers?
What was the final number?
I'm telling you to guess it.
Oh, well, the way you were going, you were up to 4 or 5, and you were still going when the call came in. So 5
of the top 50.
I don't know. I seriously. I mean, let me think about it a minute before I do.
Yeah, think about it. Because I'm going to make fun of
top 50. It wouldn't shock me based on how much people have talked about this class. He might have 7.
11.
11 in the top 50?
More than 20% of his top 50 players are wide receivers.
Wow.
And I think Dane Brugler had 12.
Is it that many?
I'll list the guys just so the fans know who these guys are. We'll talk about them a lot as we go ahead here. Just
all
so
right,
people have
go backwards.
I'm working backwards.
Good. Yeah, do that.
Malachi Corley, he was at the Senior Bowl. He's basically Deebo Samuel. Like, you stand next to him, he's built like Saquon Barkley. He is a freaking tank.
Okay.
Monster of a player. He's his 50th ranked player. Who else does he have on the list here? Ladd McConkey. He's the 44th ranked player. Route running, really good wide receiver. Xavier Worthy, he's going to run a 4.35. Speedster out of Texas. He's about 6 foot, but only about 175 pounds, I think. So he's there. Tony Franklin at 39.
I like Franklin a lot.
I like Franklin a lot too. Really good deep ball. Not quite as adept as running all the routes as you would like, and he's a little skinny. Those are the two knocks on him, but he catches everything, and he's fast as you know what, and he separates really good.
He separates marvelously.
At 38, Keon Coleman out of Florida State, one of Paul's towers, but does not separate that well, at least in my opinion. But he's big, he's tall, he's physical. He's at 38. Keep going down the list. Let's go to number 34, player I mentioned earlier, Adonai Mitchell. He's listed at 6'3", runs like a guy that's 5'10".
Yeah.
He is really good athletically, fast, gets over the top. I think he needs to sharpen up some of the details. But if you want a piece of clay that if you coach upright can be a 1A wide receiver, he has the size and the athleticism to be that guy. 34th ranked player. But that's how good he is. Man. I would consider taking him. Again, I haven't done my full watch on Mitchell yet. I only watched his first month of play this year and his play last year. But based on what I've seen so far, I'd have him ahead of Jordan Addison last year. Maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba. He would be right there with the top wide receivers last year, at least in my opinion, because of his size and his traits. All right, keep going down the list here. Let's go down to number 26. He is Devontae Walker at 26, which for me is a little bit high. Out of North Carolina, we talked about him earlier in the show.
We did.
But I would have him below that. I would have him below Mitchell, Franklin.
I like Franklin better.
Probably below Coleman as well, to be totally honest.
Then again, I got a little disenfranchised with what I saw of Walker this week, and that's probably not fair.
Yeah, and you need to go back and watch him during the year. When you go back and watch Drake May, which I'm sure you'll do, you'll see a lot of Devontae Walkers. You can watch them both. You can watch them both together on the same tape. That's pretty much what I did. I watched every Drake May snap, and then I saw every Devontae Walker target.
So be in there.
It worked out pretty well.
He'll be in the picture.
Yes. So now we're heading into the top 15, okay? One receiver we haven't mentioned, Brian Thomas Jr., is his 15th ranked player from LSU. Again, 6'4", I think 210, long, big, deep threat, gets over the top, but is physical too, flashes some pretty good wiggle and some agility for a guy that size. Again, more of the ball of clay category. You're going to have to mold him a little bit as a route
Neighbors
runner.
is more pro-ready.
Correct. But Thomas checks all the boxes in terms of and he will also run a sub-4 40-yard dash.
See, and is it any wonder? Now, remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about some of these guys who came from schools who also had high-level quarterbacks. You had high-level quarterbacks, high-level targets. I mean, you had Thomas and Neighbors, and look who's throwing him the ball.
He has Neighbors at number 7, the wide receiver at LSU. And again, he's a tough son of a gun, too. He'll catch it over the middle and get hit, and he's electric as they come. Some concentration jobs, but really, really good player. And then he has, believe it or not, Roma Dunzier is his 3rd-ranked player.
Overall?
Yeah.
Woo!
The only players he has ahead of him is Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams.
How about that?
So he has Roma Dunze at number 3. We talked about him earlier in the show. Marvin Harrison at number 2. And those are your 11 wide receivers in his top 50.
Now, you know me. If I were to have to take a receiver at 6, and I don't know where it's going to go.
Oh, you would take a Dunze.
You're damn straight I would.
I know you.
You know that. You know me. You know me.
I told you when I watched the Dunze.
You're right.
Texted you, go, Paul, you're going to watch this guy.
You're absolutely right.
You that.
And you're absolutely right. I can't play poker. I can't. You guys know exactly where I'm coming from at all times.
You've repeated the same things on the show for 10 years. If I didn't know what you were thinking by now, I needed my own head examined.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Odunze is definitely the guy I would take over Neighbors at 6 if I was going to be married to a wide receiver. Yes.
Right now, and you're not married to this, would you go wide receiver or tackle at 6? If the players are graded exactly the same. I'm still on the fence, and again, I'm not making you commit to this. Right now, where would you lean?
If I had to pick today...
If they're graded exactly the same.
I'm going to plan to sign a guard. I'm going to believe in Neal to be the tackle, so I'll probably take the receiver today.
Today, I would probably take the tackle because I feel good about getting a wide receiver at the top of round 2.
And I understand that. I have more belief that either one of the guards who have been hurt will make it or they'll sign a guard. And I have a belief that Evan Neal, I'm like Joe Shane, I think that Evan Neal is going to work out at right tackle.
I like Evan. You know
believe
me.
that.
I believe in Evan.
I believe he's going to work out.
He's going to be a good player too. But they need 2 guards. They need 2.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that they could sign one and then one of the other injured guys is going to pan out. Remember, if I sign one guard at a legitimately, beefy number, not necessarily a superstar number, but at a beefy number, I've lessened the chances of failure with the injured guys.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you.
So that's where I would go.
All right, guys, thanks for being with us. Giants TV, the Giants Connected TV streaming app, brings original video content, game highlights on demand, direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. And season tickets, go to Giants.com/tickets for 2024 season tickets. They stay connected to the club all year round. Memberships are available. A lot of member benefits. Go check it out. Giants.com/tickets. For Paul, for Pearson, I'm Schmelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
You deserve to treat yourself, so turn your tax refund into a U fund and give yourself a Straight Talk Wireless Extended Silver Unlimited plan and get a new Samsung Galaxy A14 on them. You can get a great everyday value on wireless with Straight Talk's Unlimited plan starting at $25 a line per month for 4 lines. You'll save so much you'll be enjoying that refund all year long. It's the refund that keeps on refunding. Find Straight Talk at straighttalk.com or at your local Walmart store.
Taxes and fees not included. Offer valid through 4/14/24 while supplies last. Online only. Must purchase a Straight Talk Extended Silver Unlimited plan to qualify. Limit of 5 phones per customer. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Not combinable with auto-pay discount.
Introducing the Lisa Chill Collection, your answer to hot nights. These mattresses beat the heat with ultra-cool covers, whisking away heat for the perfect sleep temperature. Save up to $460 on Chill mattresses and get 2 free pillows when you shop now. iHeart listeners can save an extra $50 off by visiting lisa.com/iHeart. That's LEESA.com/iHeart. Exclusions apply. See lisa.com for more details.